Welcome one and all to Umami Manga. I am one of your hosts, Petter, and with me I got my co-host, James.
Hello.
And today we're talking about Volume 8 of To Your Eternity. For us, we actually recorded the previous discussion for Volume 7 yesterday, so we're having like a little bit of an intense week, but we're going to be uploading, regularly, like with a week's interval, but yes, I have not waited too long to read this book, and neither have you. But I'm still very excited to talk about it.
It's a really good one.
Mm,
The story is getting very juicy, but
yes.
where we are in the plot, this could be one of my favorites so far, to be honest.
Oh, really? Nice. I'm super happy to hear that. Cool. Great. Well, and I look forward to hearing your reasons for that, I guess, as we go through the discussions.
Hmm.
Awesome. So let's start with Fushi, as we usually do. And something I thought was interesting in regards to what we talked about for the previous book was sort of Fushi's potential relationship with Kahaku, which we talked about last time. And
Hmm.
what was interesting in pretty much the very beginning of this book, it seemed like Fushi sort of lost some trust in Kahaku.
Yeah.
When he learned that the Guardians had stolen Tonari's diary from him. Uh, Now,
Hmm.
obviously, that wasn't Kahaku himself who did that. Like, he personally wasn't
Right.
guilty of it. So, like, yeah. But there were other little incidents that happened throughout this book between these two characters, and I was just curious to hear kind of what do you think at this point, like after having read Volume 8, what do you think of their potential friendship moving forward?
Oh, their friendship moving forward. Um. So I guess I'll address that. I don't think it's broken. I think there is a bit of trust that was lost after everything that's happened.
Mm,
Uh, a bit. Fushi does say that he doesn't view, or she or whatever doesn't view Kahaku as a bad person.
right.
Um, and I think that there was just a moment of, well, I just think that Kahaku lost a bit of control
Yeah.
at one point, and that hurt Fushi, similar to how I guess Gugu and him had a fight way
Fair.
back when.
Right. That's a good point.
But as to where it would go from here, it's hard to say. And this leads to the other thing I want to talk about is Fushi's kind of, well, he had a few things that he was trying to understand, but one of the main things he was trying to understand this volume was love.
Yeah.
And yeah, I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. Like, kind of, when I was writing my notes, that song came in my head.
Yeah.
And he was asking a few people about it. Well, particularly when Bone brought up the fact that he should find a sweetheart,
Mm,
and I got him thinking about that. And so, based off of that, this whole Kahaku thing, who's very much into Fushi, very much so,
yeah.
it kind of does potentially lead it that way, especially since Bon is it could potentially be uh, preoccupied with someone else,
Yeah.
potentially. I mean, we'll get to that later, but I don't think Bon at this point it would be a romantic interest for Fushi. I'm still not exactly sure Fushi is quite ready yet to be romantically interested in someone.
Right.
Um, but I do think that love wise, like understanding what love is, not just romantically speaking, uh, but just love in general, I think he will come to know that better by the end of this arc, I guess, or
Exactly.
at least in relation to Kahaku and Bone and all them.
Yeah. Yeah. At least if the story continues, with these themes of love, which this book absolutely, as you said, uh,
Mm-hmm.
explored. But there's also the issue where we saw Fushi feeling literally sick in these romantic situations where when he's in somebody else's body, like he didn't feel like, and just make it clear, I'm using male pronouns for Fushi just kind of sort of consistently
Just to make it
because
easier.
partially to make it easier, but also because he he also has made it clear. I think what it was in the previous book where he said that he felt the most himself while in the boy's form.
Yeah, and he did say that he had spent more time as a boy, I guess,
That too, yeah.
at one point this volume, I think. So maybe that. Anyway, okay,
So
that's fine.
that's just how I choose to deal with that
Sure.
personally. But anyway, like I'm not saying either way is wrong or right,
No, I
but
understand.
anyway, about being in other people's bodies while in these situations of like romantic situations, it didn't quite sit right with Fushi because, well, I think for reasons that I can absolutely understand, like it just doesn't feel right to
Hmm.
use somebody else's body in that kind of way. Like even if it's just a hug, but if it's like a romantic
Mm-hmm.
kind of hug, like it's it makes it complicated. And really,
Mm-hmm.
all of his forms that he has, all of his bodies that he can take the shape of, actually, well, they actually belong to other people. So that makes it very
Right.
complicated for him. So I wonder, like, how that's going to continue, assuming he
Hmm.
ever falls in love and wants to, have romance with somebody. How will he deal with that?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
Yeah, you bring up a good question, and I didn't think about this till now, but I guess there could be the possibility he eventually down the line is able to create a unique body for himself.
Ooh,
I don't know why or how, but maybe that could be something, and
yeah,
in that way he could feel, hey, this is me, and I don't have to use the bodies of the people I know,
right.
other people's bodies.
Mm.
That said, I we can't. That's so far out. I think. Well, maybe so far because you just never know how the story will go. But that's just not in the realm of possibility at this point. So I think that it would just have to be a body that he's the most comfortable being,
Mm.
and it probably would be the boy body.
I think so too.
I can't really see it being anybody else. And it seems to apply in this volume that he very much still feels the will of the person that he's I guess using their body. You know.
Right, yeah. Although I could also see it kind of in general, even if it's not in their physical form, he can still sort of maintain their will regardless of the form he's in. I
That's
think.
true too. I think we've seen that in the earlier volumes.
I think so. Mm.
So yeah, I guess hard to say what romance could look like for Fushi if he's ever able to find it or desire it.
Yeah.
But at the very least, he is curious about it, and I think that that's part of becoming human, part of growing up,
Mm.
uh, is discovering or at least toying with these feelings of romance. And
Absolutely.
I would be surprised if the story went that way. Uh, who knows when? But and maybe it's with these characters. I don't know.
Right, exactly. Who knows? But he did fall in love with the doll.
Help me understand that. Was
Uh-huh.
that just like love, as in, oh my gosh, March would love this thing, and that was just feelings that he had because he was in Perona's body, or did he actually just be like, oh my gosh, this is the cutest thing I've ever seen. I want to marry it. Kind of a, obviously marry wouldn't be on his mind, but I don't know. Just how you look at how you look at a waifu. Like we look at Perona, it's like, oh, that's really cute.
Yeah.
I want to protect it.
I can totally I can totally see it being a bit of both of those things. Obviously,
Yeah.
I don't think Fushi has quite understood what love is completely yet, especially
Yeah.
since when he read that book, which supposedly was very much about real love, he he said that he thought what he felt toward that doll was the same thing, which
Hmm.
obviously kind of can't be the case, really. So, considering
Different strokes for
that,
different folks, man.
true, fair, but
I'm kidding.
but no, I don't think he quite knows what real love is yet,
Yeah.
and probably because he hasn't. experienced it himself. I don't think anyone can actually really understand love until they actually feel it themselves.
It's a good point.
So
It's a good point.
yeah, but definitely, about March, knowing that March would
Right.
like that doll was probably also a part of it.
You know, I part of me wondered if that interaction with Fushi and the doll, and how both Kohaku and or Kahaku, excuse me, I can't want to say Kohaku,
Yeah, me too.
Kahaku and Bon or interpret that interaction. Kahaku's kind of sees it. Oh yeah, there's totally a feminine side to her,
Right.
and but Bon on the other hand, maybe it's because he's able to see the spirits around Fushi. He kind of understands what Fushi's really getting at with the doll, potentially.
Right.
Maybe
Maybe.
I don't know. To me, I wonder if it was just showing the difference of Bon and Kahaku and how they understand Fushi, and that maybe Bon is a little closer to understanding Fushi than Kahaku is.
Perhaps, yeah.
I don't know. Not in like a romantic way or anything like that, but just as a being, Fushi as a being.
For sure. Yeah, I
Um,
do think Bon. I mean, we're going to talk more about him later, but speaking about this,
mhm.
I do think Bon does have a good ability to understand people.
That's true too.
So I think
It's
I
true.
think there's something to that for sure.
One more thing I'll say about this romance part.
Yeah.
Um, you know the saying where the worst she can say is no.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think for in Kahaku's case, the worst she can do is throw up.
Yeah. I did feel sorry for him there.
I didn't really.
I definitely did.
I'll say why later on, but
Right, for sure, for sure.
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean it was good. It was a great moment. But moving on with other Fushi parts here, we did learn that Fushi has sort of been thinking about giving in to the knockers if another person he loves should die, and
Hmm.
I think it's kind of been building up to this. I feel like ever since Volume 4, it's really been like his kind of depression has sort of gotten worse. I feel throughout these couple of books.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the equivalent of ending your life, right?
I mean, for sure, absolutely. For Fuji, it is because the knockers are really the only thing that can make him not exist anymore, sort of. At least as far as we know.
Yeah.
So it's really sad to see that. However, what I thought was really nice that kind of felt a bit more positive that we saw toward the end of this book was how because he was imprisoned in this dense iron cage, and
Hmm.
while there, he didn't give up for 1 second to try to get out of there. He consistently fought to get out and to fight on and to rescue and to help out the people, the others outside. I thought seeing that to me kind of proved that he still has something to live for, and that he
Yeah.
isn't completely done for yet.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really positive thing kind of to end the book on. So I really like that
He definitely hasn't given up.
for sure. Speaking of that iron cage part, by the way, I thought that was really really terrifying. First of all, and but also like awesome to see how he was able to escape by like generating
Hmm.
molten iron uh, to escape like that. And
And that's got to be one of the worst deaths imaginable.
yeah,
You know, being in that cage and then have molten iron poured on you. Like if you don't die from lack of oxygen, you die from the molten lava or
right.
molten iron.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like so, like yeah, like even if it doesn't result in death, like just that as torture must be just
Hmm.
unbearable. Like as the beholder was narrating it, he said that he would wake up every 6 minutes, I think, in the beginning, and then just kind of lose consciousness after taking two breaths, and then wake up after
Mm-hmm.
6 minutes, but toward the end he would only be unconscious for like 9 seconds. So his regenerative powers like improved a lot while going through that. Um, so I thought that was also pretty cool to learn.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the payoff at the end, uh, I mean, never wanted him to go through stuff like that, but
Hmm.
in the end, he's able to produce molten iron. I mean,
Exactly.
that's got to be incredibly useful. Besides being, as you mentioned, as resilient as he's become.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So he definitely got stronger by going through that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he like almost didn't make it. Like it seemed
Through
like
the refiner's fire.
yeah, but the beholders seemed to maybe almost like have like he seemed to maybe not even think Fushi would make it out of that. So it was nice to see Fushi prove him wrong there, kind of.
Hmm. Agreed.
And I guess a little bit on like how he ended up in that cage when he transformed into that dead priest.
Yeah.
That was interesting to see. Uh, and we kind of understand that he can't resurrect someone that he hasn't seen while they were alive. He never saw that guy when he was
Right.
alive, so he couldn't take a living form of him. I think it was Bon who sort of speculated like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean it makes sense given the kind of rules in this system.
Right.
And I guess it's also probably the first time we see Fushi actually transform himself into a limp body like that. He has created limp bodies, but not actually transformed himself into one. But I guess it's basically the same thing as turning into a fruit. So, yeah.
It's interesting.
Fushi got a horse.
Yeah.
A horse that bit him. Like, first impression, it just bit him in the leg.
So that horse.
Uh huh.
I have a feeling that it's probably really stupid, but
Hmm?
could the horse be Piorin? Like a reincarnated Piorin? And I'm not sure, but my reasonings are one, they gave importance to wait, what's this horse doing here, kind of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it just it felt like her or excuse me, Fushi picking that horse had more importance than just some random horse. Now, it could just be because that horse will play a role later on, a bigger role later on. Not sure.
Hmm.
But also, the horse has a little mole on its snout. I thought a little dot or something.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I think I remember seeing that, yeah.
Doesn't Piorin have like a mole on her face, or did?
She
I
probably
don't know.
does.
So yeah, that was my thinking.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, this horse would not have memories of its previous self, but I'm sure if it's a reincarnation, the will would still be there. So maybe it just was able to sense Fushi's presence and feel a connection there.
Maybe.
If it is.
Yeah. I mean,
Why do you think the horse is important? Why'd you bring it up?
no, I just thought it was a fun gag. First of all, the first like the fact that Fushi would choose the horse that bit him first thing it did,
Yeah.
and also to kind of to see also how Fushi started to learn how to ride was also an interesting little bit that we hadn't really seen before, since Fushi has never really needed or wanted to ride animals.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a really interesting theory though, and I guess remains to be seen potentially if it's ever confirmed. Like that's the interesting thing about this whole Piorin asking
Right.
to be reborn as something useful to Fushi. As I think we mentioned back when we talked about Volume 6, like, will we ever know? Will we actually get a confirmation when we see that
Mm-hmm.
in the story if it gets to that, or will it just be something that is up for interpretation for whichever person or creature that she is reborn as? So yeah, it really remains to be seen.
I mean, it can only be the man in black who can say that, right?
I think
I mean,
so.
you look at Bone's power of being able to see, I guess, the Phi or the spirit or whatever. But that's only if they are dead And so, unless the horse dies and he sees Bjorn's Fi, but even then, wouldn't it be the shape of a horse now? I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think it's got to be the Man in Black, the Beholder.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting theory. So, I guess moving on. Uh, Again, in this book, similarly to in the previous one, we saw only March, Gugu, Tsunari, and the bear walking with Fushi, as you pointed out when we talked about the previous
And
volume.
Ligard.
Oh, and Ligard too. True, true,
Or
true.
Ligard.
Ligard. I don't know which is right.
Ligard sounds better.
I guess so. But anyway, yeah, those were the only ones we have seen in the previous one and in this one, through Bond's eyes. That those are the only ones that have been walking with Fuji. So I think having seen more of it now, I think it feels safer to say that it might just actually be those characters or those spirits. Because I said last time that it might just have been like everyone else might just be off screen, but the fact that these keep being the only ones we see might mean that those are specifically the ones that are there. Like maybe, I mean, potentially. We don't even see the wolf or the boy.
That's true.
I mean, I guess you could argue the boy wouldn't be visible if Fushi is in the boy's form.
Right, he's the boy form, but
Potentially.
not the wolf.
But right, the wolf is, I'd say, more important than the bear, but the bear is still always visible. And Reen and Perona, I think, are also very relevant characters that also should have been visible. I feel. But
Well, it was like I'm pretty sure I was saying this yesterday, in that or last time, excuse me,
yeah.
in that their Fi could have passed on to heaven.
Right. Exactly.
And maybe that's why we only see the Gugu in them. But why? Why are they still here? Other than they feel like they need to be there for Fushi, which is admirable. But
that's a good reason, I think.
But Gugu said that he had no regrets, and I don't know.
Fair. Yeah. Hopefully, we'll get more.
Yeah.
Like on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I guess at least considering the others, if the others aren't there, then assuming they have moved on to have some sort of heaven like place, I think would make sense. So, do you got anything more on Fushi?
I mean, I think we've kind of barely touched on the fact that he's able to reproduce someone's body, and then
Yes.
the girl comes in and possesses that body. Like, that's huge.
That is huge. That is massive, actually.
I didn't I say something about this last time? Like
Yes.
I was thinking like can't I was thinking about what the Beholder was saying and where we were going with the story, and I wonder if it's possible for him to create a body and then have one of those spirits or those Fi that's around him come back into it.
Yep.
Now that does seem like it's again. It seems like there's got to be something that would go wrong with that, maybe at least in this kind of a story, because I don't know. It almost seems like too. I don't know, like
too
like,
happy,
too perfect,
happy ending.
too happy
Like...
that
yeah.
he'd be able to, create these people's body, and then they go back, and then he has these friends again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And like, would these people want to come back? I mean, Gugu's like, okay, hey, I'm back. I'm glad to help you, but love of my life is gone. Oh no.
Yeah.
It's like
Exactly.
March. Yeah, bring March back. Let her have an actual, like an actual adulthood, like an actual life.
Right.
But I don't know. Anyway, we don't even know if that's going to happen or not.
But it could. At this point, it feels like a possibility.
It does, and I think Fushi will find out.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's only a matter of time, and I think that's one of the themes of this volume. Basically, the truth coming out.
Mm.
Well,
the
truth will come out in the next volume. You know what I mean?
Hopefully, yeah.
When this one. Well, yeah, we don't know, but just the fact that there's these secrets these people are holding, and they're kind of holding on to it into the last possible moment.
Yeah.
And I think once Fushi finds that out, it'll take an interesting turn. And I don't know if it would be good or bad. the volume seems to implicate that, or at least Bone implicates that once Fushi finds out about this, that he'll be like the happiest thing alive, and then he'll be able to be on his own, and no one will be able to control him or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But part of me wonders if he'll take it take it a certain way. Maybe not in a great way. Not that he become evil or anything. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is maybe he'd get upset that this whole time he could do something like that, and the band in black didn't tell him, like he didn't know, and people's families are dead and gone and everything. So
Yeah,
I don't know. It would be interesting to see how he takes it.
definitely. Yeah. One thing that I like to just point out regarding, like, related to this power, though,
Uh
uh,
huh.
and actually it might also kind of work with what you speculated earlier about how the souls that we don't see walking with Fushi might have passed on to heaven already, and that
Mm-hmm.
potentially only those that are walking with Fushi, only those that are visible to Bon, are the ones who can re-enter a body. If that's the case, then that would explain why in volume, I think it was the beginning of volume 6, Fushi created an empty husk of the boy to fool Hayase. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously that boy didn't wake up and become
Right.
alive again. So that could work with all of this in mind,
Oh, that's a good connection. Because yeah, if the boy was with him, then he just really hot dog hop right in.
Yes,
Um,
that voice too.
that voice too. Although, can you imagine waking up and then Hayase's all over him? Like,
Oh no! Oh no!
it's probably a good thing. Good thing that didn't happen. Um,
Yeah.
that's a great point. Great point.
Mm.
I think eventually that's the way the story is going to go.
It would add up
Not
if
with the
that's the
boy,
case.
but yeah. Mhm.
So yeah. Anything more on Fushi?
Just one really minor thing.
All right.
I and maybe I should say for random, but I just want to get it off my chest already.
Do it.
The
Do it.
face that he makes as Perona,
Yes.
the oh my
I know
gosh,
already which one you're talking about.
like right, the Bone winks at him, and he's just kind of sticks his tongue out. He's like, hey, he's like, oh my gosh, my heart.
I knew you would bring this up. I like when I read this volume earlier today.
I knew that you would know that I would bring this up.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you actually fulfilling my prediction on that.
But it's just so adorable.
It is. It's great.
It's so playful.
I know.
And-
I love it too.
Oh my gosh. Like, okay, Kahaku, all your simping is forgiven. I forgive you. I understand. It all makes sense to me.
Oh, yes. Yes. Great. And I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
That's almost emoji worthy or an emote worthy. Come
Actually, actually, it is. It is. We probably need this on our Discord server too.
on. It would go great with the wanna eat. It really would.
Yeah, it would. Oh my god. All right. Well, speaking of Perona simps, sort of. Moving on to Bon now. Slightly, at least, he is. I would say he is
Yes, yeah.
he's a slightly Perona simp, because he made a remark at least on liking her form early in this volume, which I thought was also a little bit funny. Obviously, later on in the volume, that doesn't maintain a thing exactly, but it was still fun to
Right.
see that little hint of him at least liking the way she looked.
Well, later on, his sister mentions that his type
Oh,
are
yeah.
kind of small, petite women,
Right.
and I guess Perona's figure kind of matches that.
Yeah, I'd say
I'd
so.
say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think there was some truth in that there.
Hmm.
At least for eye candy purposes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like a physical attraction, but probably nothing more.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And we learn here also that Bon runs his own weekly magazine for the people of the country, largely about
oh
himself.
my gosh! What a great service to your country. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You know
Uh,
that's the equivalent of like People magazine or
yeah.
some other like tabloid kind of thing that only talks about the royalty. I mean, this
Right.
is much more wholesome and less kind of, you know, scandalous headlines kind of a thing,
I
but
guess
still.
so. And yeah, he's awarding himself like with awards, like with prizes and things through that magazine, and uh,
Hey, he awards other people.
he does too. He does do that too. But like, it was funny that the first time we saw that award thing, it was for himself.
Yeah.
uh,
But look, I mean, if he's flaunting, if he's like really feeling it, I mean, yeah, go get that award.
yeah. And you know what's cool also is that despite of how full of himself he is, because he definitely
Hmm.
is, the
Yeah.
people still really like genuinely like him. Like
Hmm. Love him.
everyone, like from his soldiers to like the general citizen in the country, like everyone really likes him, loves him. It's really cool to see that. Um,
He's just so charismatic, and
hmm,
people want to follow him. And I think that's because he loves them.
exactly.
And he shows it differently than I'd say his younger brother, who's literally like serving the poor and giving to charities and whatnot.
Hmm,
And I'm sure the people love him in that in a different way,
yeah.
or for a different reason. But he cares and knows the names, uh, as we see, of all the soldiers, really.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of those soldiers.
Right? And he's distraught when one is missing, and then he does everything he can to make sure he's okay. I
Yeah,
think that's the sign of a good leader, a
100%.
great leader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's full of himself. Like there's no denying that. But
Mm.
he just kind of makes it work for him in a wholesome way.
It honestly, yeah, I agree. And you know, and like he probably, at least what I imagine is he probably knows a decent amount about all of these people too, like not just their names, but
Yeah.
like personal things about them too. I imagine because you know we saw some guy showed him a picture of his little son, and like
Uh-huh.
this other guy with like showing off his new hairstyle, and like the guy with just one leg, like he knew about that guy and like knew what would happen
Hmm.
with him, and like he really knows them all and tries to be a friend to all of them in such a personal way that his brother, while he's surely a great person too, he doesn't
Hmm.
really achieve that same personal like thing with the other with the people.
As far as we can see, as far as we can tell,
Right, right.
maybe there is some sort of personal thing with the charities or the people he helps out, he serves. Like maybe he has a personal basis there.
Fair, fair. Yeah,
But
I guess out of the siblings, we didn't see like he's the one we know the least about, like, or
that's true.
he has appeared the least.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's true. And yet, despite all the things that Bon does, and or all the people that love him, his dad, the king, is still not willing to make him the next heir.
Mm.
Um, I, to be fair, I understand where he's coming from,
Yeah.
because the qualities of Bon versus the younger brother that I am not bothered to remember the name of.
Torta.
Torta?
Yeah.
What a stupid name.
Actually, funny thing, torta, like exactly the way it's written,
Uh
it
huh.
means cake in Swedish.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
So like it's easy for me to remember it that way.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, well, that's really gonna be easy. Okay, so yeah, I mean, the Torta's qualities and Bon's qualities. Oh wow, so Bon is a bonbon maybe, and then okay, I'll stop. So
Oh, and Poco is like Coco.
maybe I mean
Maybe.
I think there could be something there anyway. Uh, their personalities are just so different, and one is a little more kingly like perhaps, or at least more desirable for a king, and
Right.
not so stuck up. Well, maybe stuck up or into themselves as Bone is. But I say into themselves, and yes, he is. He's very narcissistic, but he's even when he was spending his allowance for his in frivolous ways, he was thinking about his sister. He was thinking about his mother. He's
Right.
thinking about other people,
Yeah, yeah, it really is.
and it's just his father, I guess, just doesn't see that.
Yeah, I mean, he is quite immature in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah,
Which I
yeah.
don't think Torta is. I think Torta is definitely more mature in most ways, at least from what we know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So a thought did come across my mind as I was reading again,
Huh?
and I thought, because there's a moment where the priests of the Church of Bennett come in. They're like, "Hey, we're here to take Fushi. We heard that you guys brought him for us." It's like, I didn't say anything. Did you say anything? And King's like, this is the first I've heard of it. And it was, so who who was the person that told them, or did they just put their ear to the ground, kind of a thing, and just heard rumors, or
Oh,
did
you
they
mean the
just happen to
church?
read? Yeah, the church, or did they just read the magazine that Bon passing out?
I mean, the magazine
Uh,
is a good possibility, but I would also like to point out the fact that there was like a parade almost when they came back into the city. A lot of people
yeah,
watched them as they rode in. So I would assume it's kind of common knowledge, or it became common knowledge that Fushi was there.
that's fair. But they also did kind of expect that Fushi would be handed to them,
Mm.
and both Bon and the king didn't seem willing to do so, at least at that point, or that they had any intentions. So it does make me wonder if someone told them or had inquired of them, and then I thought, well, what if the younger brother was secretly like asking them to come there,
Oh,
and I guess to sort of portray it there, but that sort of plot twist or reveal doesn't really go in line with how the story I feel it deals with plot twists or uh, plot threads.
mm.
It does seem like most people in this world, aside from those who are more antagonistic, are generally good people and wholesome and don't have these kind of dark. Yes, there are evil people, but at least those within the main cast and everything, it doesn't seem like there's too many people who are just willing to ruin someone's life like that. I
Yeah.
don't know. Just so it's not a guess that I'm at all confident with. Just kind of like a what if. Maybe
Right.
that could happen, and that would give the Torta a little more story relevancy.
Mm.
But yeah, that's not something I'm confident about. Just want to throw it out there.
Right. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. As we talked earlier a little bit about the whole thing about Bond learning about the fact that Fuji can revive people, or at least people that he has seen when they were alive.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding that, I think it's clearly for selfish reasons that Bond doesn't want to tell Fushi about it, because he
Right.
he wants to continue being with Fushi. He doesn't want Fushi to leave him for his other friends or his older friends. And
Mm-hmm.
and later on, when Bond is approached by the High Cleric Silira, and he's
Mm-hmm.
offered that deal, or well, he's really being tricked or being threatened rather, but
Right.
it's proposed as a deal. Um, Bond does agree to it, but I the way I view this is really that he's really only agreeing to it because his family and his people and his country was on the line. Like he had all of that on the line in that moment through that threat. So that was why he handed them Fushi, or he expressed that he was okay with them taking Fushi only because of that. I
Hmm.
think if it wasn't for that, he wouldn't have wanted to give up Fushi like that. I think he even has the like when we follow his thought process a little bit during that scene, he even starts questioning the fact that he was sort of abusing Fushi or using Fushi for his own gain by not telling Fushi about the resurrection abilities.
Right.
So I think in that moment he really, I mean, he was clearly conflicted, but both the fact that that I don't think he would have done that if the circumstances hadn't been as dire as cleric Celira made it out to be, but also that he may have even started to sort of backpedal on his original actions of not telling Fushi about those powers. So hopefully soon he will tell him about that, because now they are reunited at the end of this by the end of this book.
Right.
And but because he really was threatened by the cleric, as Iris pointed out. Like he definitely just bought into the church's threats in that moment.
Yeah. I don't blame him too much for making the mistakes or making the choice he did.
Mm.
I think that because he had kept that secret from Fushi for so long, and that he's had this goal or this desire to use Fushi so he could become king, he did feel guilty
Mm.
about uh, making that sort of decision, and didn't necessarily realize he was being threatened the way he was, maybe.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think for sure he'll eventually tell the truth. I don't think his purposes are solely selfish. I think it definitely started out that way, mostly selfish
Mm.
towards the beginning of the interest into the story. But over time, um, I think over time he's maybe realized that there are things that are more important in life,
Mm.
and also what it means to be a king, and and rule over a people. I guess I don't
Yeah.
know.
Right.
I guess I'm just talking out
No, but
talking
I think
nonsense at this point.
I think you're right, and I think especially it was during his time when he was imprisoned. Toward the end of this book, when he had time to do a lot of thinking that he hadn't really done before that, probably. And I think he
Yeah.
definitely grew as a person during that time. Like, um, and actually, speaking of that part of the story regarding him, I love how they could see each other's shadows there and like the cages, just like
Mm-hmm.
in the story in the book that Kahaku recommended to Fushi about the people
Right.
who were crucified. It was a really nice little reference to that. And actually, the final page of that book, like the story in this story, the final page of that was featured as a bonus page between two of the chapters, by the way, in the physical volume.
Oh, the final page of the novel and the story.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, is it spoiler?
Uh, no, no, no. It's not. It's not really. It doesn't. I don't think it adds too much. But I thought it was a nice little thing to have there. It basically tells like it's a man and a woman. I think they're both crucified, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the woman stops responding to the man after a while,
Mm.
and he doesn't really understand why. I guess he can't accept the fact that she had passed away at that point, and then like sometime after that, he can't see the shadow of her cross anymore. So she had been taken away, and
Mm.
they were like her last words to him had been something along the lines of like, "I hope we can see each other again sometime." And then
Mm.
so sort of the very end is like he's just well he dies, and
Yeah.
that is sort of visualized or symbolized in the text by him falling out of the cross, or like kind of slipping out of the ropes and being free.
Oh. Hmm.
So I guess they got to be with each other in the afterlife. Hopefully, I mean this is just a story within a story. So,
Right. Right.
uh, but it was still nice. I thought to have that there.
But putting that page thing aside, I had taken note of this novel and how there was the shadows and I saw the two shadows,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't really think too much about it until the second read through,
Mm.
because during the first read through you see obviously that there's a shadow there of Bone and Chabi and Toto there. Um, and so I at that point I didn't think of it, but the second read through is like, oh, that they're connecting it that way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to talk about this now, but I think that that's definitely a symbolism in sort of kind of a romantic way of the romance in that, and potentially the romance that could happen here.
Yes. Absolutely. Definitely. I think so for sure. Especially since we know that Iris is in love with Bon.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So and if the story, like if the actual To Your Eternity story is anything like the story within the story, then I guess it I guess we shouldn't be surprised if that is the case.
Right. I was gonna say this for Iris's part, but
uh,
um, I think that the fact that we don't see Iris at all, it does make me wonder if either she dies before they can really see each other, or Bond can understand who she is,
hmm,
um, kind of tragically like that, or I don't know if something else bad happens.
right.
I don't know, like because it's kind of setting up for somewhat of a grand reveal that oh she's thin and recognizable now. Oh my gosh, it's you,
Right.
and that would be great. But this is also To Your Eternity, and I don't know if that sort of reveal matches. Although if it happens, oh my gosh, yes, I will eat it up.
I know you would.
But it's almost like something bad's gonna happen, and maybe she is so malnourished that she dies, or
Mm,
um, she when they have to when they have to take the people out, maybe something happens with the weight balances, and Fushi's not able to save her. I don't know. I
mm.
don't
Yeah, could be rough.
know. Or nothing happens.
Right. And that would be great.
Yeah.
But I guess a little bit back to Bon. So there's I guess at least from what I can recall just right now, there were three instances throughout this book when he was around at the same time as the Beholder was around. And
Yeah.
what I thought was kind of interesting regarding that was the first time Bond didn't really seem to see or hear him at all. Like he was like faced the wrong way when he was trying to communicate with him and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It, even though he's supposed to see everything, like at least that's kind of his ability, you know. He can even see these all these spirits, but at least based on the first interaction there, he couldn't see the Beholder. But then the second time, when the Beholder warned Fushi about the knocker attack in the village, it seemed initially like Bon had heard him, but
Right.
then he explained that it was because he could tell from Fushi's face expression.
Mm-hmm.
So that still didn't exactly show anything really that he could actually see or hear the Beholder. But then there was that last time after Anna, the girl, had come back to life.
Mm-hmm.
There, like when he was walking down the stairs, I think, or at least it looked very much like he definitely was looking at the Beholder in that moment.
Right.
He could see him then. I'm quite sure.
Yeah. I was curious to hear how you would take it, because that third moment is like, wait, it seems like he's very much trying to talk with him, like, and as if he can see him.
Right.
I wonder if the Man in Black has ever really given him the time of day
Mm.
per se, but still, it's interesting, and kind of vague.
Yeah.
But I feel the same way, that he is able to see him, and we'll see if that plays any sort of role going forward.
For sure. And it also makes me wonder if he was actually faking it both of those first times. Like that he actually did see and hear him both of the entire time, but that he
Oh, I
pretended
think
not
so.
to. Yeah, I think so as well. I also wanted to just kind of get your take on that, but yeah.
I think it's because, well, one, he's probably trying not to make his powers obvious,
Mm,
or at least too obvious, and it's also what the training he's gone through his whole life, really, in not being allowed to talk about those spirits.
exactly.
Uh, so I think that it plays a factor in it as well.
For sure. Yeah. So anything more on Bon?
So he mentions how March would have liked to grown with Fushi, uh, when Fushi turns into March and he picks her off of the tree.
Yeah.
Uh, and it feels like he's spoken to March before, and I wonder how many of the other people, other spirits around Fushi he's spoken to, besides Tonali, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah, that Could be more than we know.
And then I think the last thing I'll say about Bon, it ties in with kind of another theme of this volume, and I briefly mentioned it, but both him and Iris have a truth that they're hiding, and they believe it's their. Well, they want to hide it because could ruin their good luck.
Mm.
And luck seems to be that theme that kind of goes through, and a few people mention this luck.
Right.
Um, and even Bon says it to March that you're a lucky girl, March, um,
Yeah.
when she's like next to the doll. And yeah, that's interesting that the the luck is a theme there, and is the next theme of the volume 9 is that the luck running out,
Oh, that would be pretty good.
or I don't know. It's just interesting to see that theme carry on and how both Bon and Iris have this uh, secret they're holding because of that.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So moving on to Kahaku.
What a simp!
He is. He is.
All he's doing is simping. That's all he's doing.
But you know what I thought was really nice to see was uh, in the beginning of this book when I feel like he's such a good guy when he was looking away the moment Bond's servant started undressing Fushi. When
Oh
he
yeah,
wasn't
sure. Looking away,
in
you
throne
know,
form.
puts his hand over his face, but you know, he can see through his hand.
You-
He can see through his
Looking
fingers.
between his fingers.
Yeah.
You
He's
think
like,
he
oh
was?
no,
You think he
oh,
was?
don't do that.
No,
Oh,
no.
that's so immodest.
You know, I think he would absolutely love to see her that way. I'm not gonna lie, but I do choose to think that he is such a good and innocent boy that he would resist it. He wouldn't look. That's what I choose to believe.
Well, you know, it could be just a dueling wants, you know, like he's like, oh no, I don't want to do it, but also I kind of want it.
Oh
I
yeah,
kind of want to see.
he definitely wants it. Uh,
Well, it's like he can't control the urge to simp for Fushi, and
yeah,
then seeing, but he was able to do it a bit when Fushi was just the boy, but the moment he transformed into a woman, that was kind of the trigger. You know, seeing
yeah.
Whammon, he's like, oh my gosh, I have these urges.
Yeah, Hayase's will became a bit too strong at like from that point on, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, and so I think it's a struggle for him to just control that.
For
And
sure.
it gets out of hand at the one point after the hug.
Absolutely. Yeah, like he like I felt very sorry for him you know during the times when Fushi there was at least two, maybe three times in this book, but at least two when Fushi came up to Kahaku and kind of asked him questions about love. Just kind of out of the blue came up and just asked very very kind of sensitive questions like that. And for us as the readers, knowing how he feels about Fushi, that's got to be so conflicting and just painful
Yeah,
for him.
true.
Like
True.
definitely, I think he's definitely in pain from being in love, and in those moments especially. So I really felt for him in those scenes.
Yeah, particularly when Fushi asks, "Does pain hurt?" Or not pain. Does love hurt or something like
Mm,
that?
mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Yes, yes."
Yeah, yeah, that was so good. That was so well kind of portrayed in the book there. I loved that part.
Yeah.
Oh, Kahaku. But you know, then eventually he does propose to Fushi, and and then you know really just goes off the deep end, and
Right.
that was a little bit disturbing. uh, but you know
Yeah.
it's not him. It's not or it's not.
It is him. It is
Well,
him.
it is
We
him,
can't.
but
He is reincarnated. The will is reincarnated into him,
exactly. But
and Hayase is part of him. And to say that it's out of his control is almost not correct. It's just who he is. Um, although that, although I don't want to make it sound like he can't change or he can't control, but I think that to say that, oh, that's Hayase is not entirely accurate because
Well, no.
well, it is Hayase. He is Hayase.
Well,
Just but he's also his own person.
I think as a person he is completely his own, but as we have said, like her will is there, and I think if her will hadn't been implanted into him the way it has been through this reincarnation thing, he wouldn't have those urges. At least not.
Well, he wouldn't
Well,
exist
um, well,
because,
what?
as far as we understand, it's the Phi, like literally the spirit that's being reimplanted each time, and it's not the memories that get carried on. It's the will that get carried on.
Yeah, but we don't know exactly how the Yanome are performing this reincarnation thing, how that works exactly. Because with the Hayase line, it's really a special case. Like it's the only instance we know of where this is a thing.
That's a good point. I didn't
So
think. I didn't think that. I guess I didn't think about how are they actually doing this,
right,
other than they just tell each other, okay,
yeah,
wish really hard so that your granddaughter will have uh, my will or something. I don't know.
right, right, exactly. So that is unclear exactly how that functions. I think regardless of the reincarnation thing, if Hayase and her descendants would have just kept on having kids, having children, and kept their line going, Kahaku would have been born just the same eventually, but just without without Hayase's reincarnated Phi in him. Uh, Although this is really a very what if kind of thing, but yeah, I would definitely say it's because of her being reincarnated in his body or her will anyway that he does go off the deep end like he did in this book. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have. I don't think. So I feel sorry for him in that way. Like I wish it's got to be torturous for him, and also as he sincerely apologized afterwards.
Well, that's true too.
He
That's true too.
genuinely felt like a fool in that moment, and yeah,
So I don't share exactly the same sympathy. I feel a little bit bad for him that he wasn't able to control himself, but at the same time, there's consequence to your actions, and I think that, I mean, that's just, he exists because of the will of Hayase, and that's just part of him. Um, and so I guess just like the his arm, the knocker in his arm, he has to learn to control that urge. And I think out of anybody we've seen from the Hayase line so far, he seems the most capable of being able to control that.
yeah,
Um, and he had a slip up there, understandable. Perona was looking mad cute. I, no, don't blame him. Or I guess Fushi was looking mad cute. But yeah, so but I think, like you said, he apologized, he reflected, and I don't think this would be too much of an issue going forward, if at all. There may be moments. There could be more moments,
yeah,
but well, it definitely won't catch me off guard at all. But one thing that I really like about Kahaku is he learns, or he'll talk about some of the past of the Guardians, like how they stole the diary
yeah,
from Tonari, and Fushi will exclaim, "What?" It's like, "What are you guys doing? You stole that from Tonari. You stole that from me," and gets upset, and he's like, "I didn't realize that wasn't me." And but he feels repentant. He feels
mm,
almost feel like he regrets his ancestors, what they did. And then the same thing happens again when he finds out that Hayase was the one that murdered Perona,
yeah,
and you kind of really feel that the regret and disgust with himself, and I guess his ancestors.
yeah.
So in that sense, I feel like he's able to reflect and understand his history better, and maybe for the better, and maybe make the Guardians a little less sketchy.
I hope so. I absolutely hope so. And I agree. Like compared to his predecessors, he is definitely better. Much better, I'd say. And although still not ideal or whatever, but it
Mm-hmm.
is, as I talked about, like he really has been put in a shitty situation, both with Hayase's will being within him and with that knocker being in his arm. Like
Yeah, the
two
knocker in his arm.
two things that really just weigh him down or just make his life more difficult than it could have been. But I love him. Like I actually, on my first read through of these first 12 books last year, I I don't know. I don't know if I had like too much of an opinion on Kahaku necessarily, but right
Uh-huh.
now I'm absolutely loving him like so much.
Really?
Yeah, like he's one of
Oh.
my favorites. Probably my absolute favorite in this part of the story right now. At least out of the
What?
like not counting Fushi, but like out of these current characters that were introduced here, like in the previous book and this one,
Uh-huh.
I think he's my number one. I absolutely
I
love him.
I'm gonna have to strongly disagree because Bone is here, and Bone is amazing,
But Bon is
and
amazing.
and so I don't know. Like Kahaku is great, um, and I like his character, and he's so much better than all the thirsty women that came before him. But I don't know. I haven't. I guess lack of a better word, fallen in love with his character.
Fair, yeah,
Uh,
totally.
I haven't really found anything besides he's just a good guy deep down to really, I guess, attach to him
Mm.
or yeah, be I guess excited to even see his character.
Ah,
You know,
I mean, that's fair.
whereas Bowen, like you get his whole backstory and you just see how a wholesome person he is, and he's all the funny moments with him. I think he has so much going for him that I'm so surprised that you would say you like Kahaku better. Something must happen going forward,
uh,
like that. Well, obviously you don't get details, or I'm not saying it's necessarily like death or something, but
uh-huh.
just something narratively wise must happen to make you to make you say that. But um, again, don't go ahead.
Right. Well,
Don't say it.
of course, of course. And although like I would probably like I'm really trying to just look at these two books when I made that statement. So,
Right.
uh,
Yeah. Right.
it's
Right.
really how I feel right now.
7 and 8.
Although Bon is a close second, what I think is so cool about both of those two characters, Kahaku and Bon, is that they are like they're such interesting characters in the sense that they have both good and bad inside them, both of them,
Ah.
in completely different ways, of course. But I love both of them for those reasons, and I think they're so well written in that regard.
Yeah. And I want to state that I think Kahaku is pretty well written.
Mm.
I, again, I haven't gotten excited to see him in the story per se, but I think he's a well written character. His how he comes into the story and the whole backstory with the Hayase lineage
Mm.
and the Guardians is very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anything more on Kahaku?
No.
All right, then we have mostly smaller characters left, but let's talk a bit more about Iris, perhaps, if we have anything that we didn't mention when we talked about her earlier. Obviously, she's in love with Bon, and
Mm-hmm.
perhaps she's a bit too keen on doing literally anything for him. I think that's probably a bit unhealthy.
Yeah, I don't think she prizes herself too much.
No.
Um, well, I mean, when we see her in the story, which is back in volume 7, right, where like, doesn't he sit on her? But it's just such a nonchalant thing that we that it's not even touched on.
Maybe, yeah.
I feel like at one point he sat on her while he had captured Fushi.
Right.
Um,
You're probably
but
right.
but the fact that she gained so much weight from what she before, and that um, Bond didn't even recognize her as a female.
Yeah.
I think that just kind of maybe degraded her self worth a little bit,
Yeah.
and so she was just willing to do anything for Bond to at least recognize her. It's
Yeah.
still I agree it's unhealthy. It's
Right.
unhealthy.
It is, yeah, and it's very sad,
Yeah.
and like for her to pretend to be a boy for that long, just to get closer to Bon, and in this like second half of this book, she even took a sword to the gut to defend him.
Dang, man.
Like, yeah, dang. And then of course at the end she lost all that weight when they were imprisoned. So
I mean,
yeah.
okay, so to me, it's obvious she's the girl that sewed that thing, or
Hmm.
at least has relation to that girl who sewed that thing
Uh huh.
so many years ago.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder why she was there. Like why she was just chilling there at the castle sewing something. Um, maybe her parents maybe were working there, or
Right.
I don't know. Like it's kind of strange because then she gains all this weight. Did the parents get a good job? it's I
Yeah.
don't know. I kind of hope we see more about her. You know,
Absolutely.
I hope it's not done yet because you know how I was saying that maybe she ends up uh, too malnourished and could die there.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be tragic, but it would be sad. I may have a little bit of a sad moment there, but
Yeah.
I think it could be even better if we understand more about who she is, and then she can die.
Absolutely. Although to be fair, we could learn more about her after she dies,
Yeah,
hypothetically.
I know,
And
I
if she
know.
does die from literally starving to death here, I mean, that would make sense
Mhm,
considering all of that weight that she lost, first of all. And
mhm,
it would also mirror the story within the story to some extent.
mhm,
Just saying. But, but yeah, like, assuming you're correct about her being that child from when Bon was a kid,
mhm.
then I think as they said it in that backstory in the previous volume, she appeared in the castle 3 days a week, if I remember correctly. So
Oh,
then I think that could work with with what you suggested, that maybe she had a parent maybe who worked there a few days a week and she would have to come along. Perhaps
hmm.
could make sense.
I really hope she doesn't die in the cage before seeing Bone
I
again.
really hope so too. Definitely.
Ah, stupid story.
Yeah, yeah. Anything more on Iris or Toto?
A great weight loss scheme. Like great. I mean, she should write a book.
You get imprisoned for 3 weeks and don't eat anything.
It is a bit. It is a bit much. How much weight she loses in just 3 weeks.
Or however, I don't know if it was 3 weeks, but it said at least that Fushi had been imprisoned for a few weeks. I think was
Right,
how
right.
the
I
mm,
feel like it would take a few months, at least.
yeah,
Maybe she wasn't as fat as the drawing made it out to be, but I don't know.
true.
If you're like 200 pounds or something like that, you know,
Maybe she just was wearing very very baggy clothes. I don't know.
potentially.
Hmm. But yeah, I mean, I agree, I agree. But then again, it's a story,
It's a
so
story. Yeah,
so
that's all
yeah.
I got.
All right then, let's move on to the Beholder himself. He says that Fushi will be given freedom after successfully achieving all of his goals, and
Yeah.
that was interesting in and of itself. But I also enjoyed kind of Bond's comment on that when he sort of questioned
Mm-hmm.
his use of words and said that it was very vague. It was very vaguely put.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I wonder how truthful that is, and like to what extent that freedom will be if and when Fuji might
Right.
reach that goal.
You wonder like because Bon asks what the reward would be and he says freedom and so it just makes you wonder like, what kind of context could that be? Is it freedom that he'll be able to pass on into heaven like all his friends? Is that
Mm,
even possible for Fushi? Does he have a fi like that? Like maybe I don't know,
right.
but then again we're dealing with this immortal being, so perhaps death is not really the freedom that he would be able to get. I don't know. I guess there's no point in thinking of it too much right now because it is so vague.
True.
Um,
True.
what what I was so interested in is kind of how Bon really reacts towards the Men in Black,
Mm,
um, and how he kind of implies that unless he hears more about him and Fuji's situation, he won't know if if the beholder is friend or foe. Like he even insinuates
Yeah.
that he could be a villain, you know?
True, true. Yeah, and I do like that skepticism in Bond
Yeah.
in regards to the Beholder because I think he's not wrong to doubt him, all things
Yeah.
considered. And Fushi himself isn't completely fond of the Beholder either, of
Yeah.
course.
Oh yeah. Totally.
So yeah, yeah. So much mystery still, and might be too early to ask a lot of these questions, but still interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Um, my last thing on the Beholder is just I wanted to point out how much of a jerk he was when Fushi was being drenched in molten iron, and
Oh
he
gosh.
started counting the seconds for him, and and much later, like after he started counting, he started kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it just kind of cut off, and then it comes back like at a later point in the book, and he says like some really high number. I can't remember the number right now, but I
Mm-hmm.
calculated it into hours, and it was like 31 hours and something, and so he had been counting the seconds for 31 hours straight, supposedly. It's just so rude, so mean.
Yeah. Not cool move by him.
No, totally not cool. Do you got anything more on him?
Yeah. So I wonder if. Well, it seems to imply that the beholder knew Fushi could bring back life, and that he
Mm.
withheld that information from Fushi. At least that's what Bone seems to be implying.
Yeah, yeah, that seems like the case. Yeah.
So why? Why does he need to hide that? I think it could be that Fushi needs to learn for that himself in order for him to grow, and that could be a reason. It also could be that
Mm.
if he knew he could just bring people back to life, that well he wouldn't grow. He wouldn't um, maybe try to do difficult things per se, and maybe he would rely on people too much. Which I don't know. Maybe that's an extreme. But again, the beholder thinks differently, a bit differently than Fushi does at the moment. So
Yeah. No, I think both of those like reasons are good ones. I I think both of them could actually be completely what the beholder is thinking, and also like if Fushi did know about it, and if he would use it to bring people back to life, then presumably he wouldn't be able to take those forms himself anymore,
mm,
and that would
uh,
restrict him, and maybe the
mm.
beholder wouldn't want that, perhaps.
Oh, okay.
Like let's say he would, if he would be able to bring Gugu back to life, then maybe he wouldn't be able to transform into Gugu anymore himself.
Mm,
Although of course we can't know for sure, but yeah, just
yeah.
speculating there.
Good point. Good point.
So all right, so there's just a few very even more minor characters that I guess I got left here.
Okay.
So Poco, the
Yeah.
the sister, the princess. Uh,
So
I
funny.
I don't like the way she speaks. I don't like it.
You don't
Uh,
think it's cute?
I mean, I guess at first, but it got a little old pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she's cute though. She is.
No, I agree. Like it's it's kind of maybe a little too much. Uh, it's fun. I did not expect her to be a stowaway on this trip,
Right.
but or quote unquote stowaway. I mean, she's like in this barrel the whole time, rolling around or like walking around.
Yeah. And Bond doesn't even know that she's there.
Apparently, like he makes no acknowledgement that she's there, and maybe that's the point.
Yeah, I think she told them not to tell him too.
Yeah,
So
right.
that is kind of funny.
Apparently, she gets bored easily, and that's why she decided to join
Yeah,
on.
but even then she's bored when she's out
Yeah.
on the adventure or on the journey.
So when she first joins them, like she says that she's bored, and she kind of glances over at Kahaku and the Guardians. I don't know if it's because of them per se, or if it's just what they're doing right now is more interesting than what's happening at the castle.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be interesting to see if that goes anywhere.
Absolutely. So next one, Chabo, a little bit, the bald little boy.
Okay.
His mother is dead, as
You
Bond
mean
could.
the weight?
Yeah, yeah. Oh gosh,
That's
yeah.
so
It was
terrible.
such a dark realization when Bond kind of understood that,
Yeah.
because they wouldn't put a boy there just for having stolen like a piece of bread. Or
Yeah.
I guess at first it seemed that way, and I guess I just accepted
Right, it
it
did.
because like, oh, I guess they're just that brutal. But then it made
Mhm.
more sense than when Bond realized that, like, shit, that's why he's
Mhm.
here. That was really dark. I thought really tragic, and the fact that they killed his mother over all of that as well,
Yeah.
and also seeing him collect all these pieces of bread for his mother, like over the
Uh,
over the days that they spent there. So sad, so sad. I really hope he makes it out of this and is able to live a good life after this.
yeah.
Really, really, really hope so. He does not deserve anything bad.
No.
So, last character that I have noted down here anyway is High Cleric Celera of the Church of Bennett.
Who?
Yeah, like what's his name again?
What's his name again?
I love how Bond never could remember the name. It is a hard name to remember. I always had to read it, like to look at my notes here to see
Yeah, yeah,
what's the name.
yeah.
uh, but yeah, what did I have to say about him? I guess he was sort of the villain of this book, although not very
Yeah.
present. He wasn't
Right, right.
there like too much, but still appeared a little bit throughout. And what I thought was kind of funny was that by the end of the book, he thinks that he's the winner,
Right.
but little does he know.
Oh. I wonder if that statue or that iron maiden kind of a look
Yeah,
is gonna end up being anything going forward. Like
right.
maybe like someone erects it as a statue to
Yeah, it looks cool.
Fushi or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, right, for sure.
but I think it makes sense that we would get a church of some kind to resent Fushi.
Yeah,
You know, a being who is more or less godlike
yeah.
in the fact that he's immortal. So I think that would definitely go against something that a religion is teaching,
Hmm.
unless they were the religion of Fushi.
Yeah.
The Guardian's like dibs.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, there was a line that he mentions, uh, saying that if the Lord did not abandon you, the child would be saved.
Oh yeah.
Now he says that, and it leads into the line that says Fushi did not abandon them, and
Ooh.
it's so powerful. At
Ooh.
least in my mind, it's powerful that like implicating that Fushi is their lord.
Oh, honestly, I did not actually pick up on that, but that's a
I
great
really like
catch.
that.
Dude, I love it
I don't know
too.
if that's what she meant. Well, I'm
It
sure
must have
she
been.
wanted to have a connection like or a transition like that.
Hmm.
I don't know if it means anything greater going forward, but
Right.
I love that page turn.
Right. It must have been an intentional detail. Like
Hmm.
I feel obviously I didn't pick up on it when I read it, but yeah, I love that too. Thanks for sharing that. That's so cool. So cool.
Yeah.
So, any other characters that you want to talk about?
I don't have any of the characters, but I have some random stuff.
Let's go into the random stuff.
Woo! I like how they use birds as telephones, recorders, or
Yes.
microphones, whatever.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's so strange, but also I guess clever if these birds are like pitch perfect.
Right. Yeah, like parrots. That's
Parrots,
something I
yeah.
look forward to hearing. Like, if they do a season 2 of the anime, I can't wait to see
Yeah.
that. Like
Oh, I hope
voiced.
so. Well, so speaking of that, I feel like I know the best person to play Bone because you know how much I
Oh,
like Bone. So I was like I think I got the best person besides me, obviously.
of course.
Um, but no, the best person is the guy who does Okabe Rintaro from
Yes.
Steins Gate, Miyano Mamoru.
Right. Yeah. 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 Doesn't he also do like Yagami in Death Note?
Yes, he does actually.
Right. Yeah, I think dude, yeah, I can totally see it. I would love that.
I think he would be perfect for this role because one he's a very diverse vocal range and actor, but I think
Yeah.
he can nail kind of the poshness of Bon, but
I
also bring in
completely.
some really those serious moments that Bon has where he's just contemplating and thinking. Um,
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think it'd be perfect. Maybe they want to give a newer actor the role, but
Mm.
I think he'd be perfect.
He would be completely. I can only agree with that.
So
Nice.
here's hoping if we get a season 2.
Right. Yeah, I really hope we do, especially considering
Yeah.
how amazing this current first season is.
It was so good, or is so good.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
It's
they really nailed it.
so fantastic. Yeah.
Obviously, I stated that Perona's Q, but we already knew that.
Yeah, I wonder who's the bigger simp, Kahaku or James?
uh, battle to the death, simp battle. Look, I didn't in a previous life kill Perona. I mean, or at least
True.
my ancestor didn't. So
True.
I got that going for me.
You got an advantage there.
um, I like how is it? How do you say your name? Poco or
Uh,
Poco?
I say Poco because it's spelled like Coco, so I just like except for the first letter, it's spelled like Coco, so I say Poco.
I can get behind that.
Mm.
I just like how she tells someone to do something and she like threatens them with killing. It, I think it's really a joke.
Yeah, well,
I
yeah,
think it's funny.
it's cute too.
Yeah.
And I think Bond did something similar. He said sort of the same thing, I think, at one point in this volume earlier.
Oh, did he?
I think. So it might just be a family thing.
The chair scene with Toto, Fushi, and well, Fushi yelling at Bon
Mm,
about Toto loving him, or it's like you can't do that. Uh, I thought the whole scene was really awkward and funny
yeah.
because at that moment you're thinking because I'll be honest, and I didn't mention this in our discussion. I did think that Toto was a guy. Like it was surprising for me that Toto ended up being a girl. Was that surprising to you, or
Um,
did you see it coming?
no, I don't think I saw that coming. Obviously, it's been a
Right?
while, but I don't remember I saw that coming.
I really didn't.
Mm,
I for some reason I was just said it's like, oh, it's a guy.
right.
I really bought into it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's the whole scene was just pretty funny and awkward to begin with. And he's like, oh, I'm not into men, and you're demoted to the sock,
Yeah.
the sock thing.
Kahaku's comment is like, isn't that better?
Yeah. Well, I mean, physical contact is always better than sock duty. So just
Fair.
saying. Um. So, but I guess just real quick, I that was a really well hidden reveal. I think the fact that um, Toto was actually a girl.
Hmm.
It was actually Iris, and I think that she did a good job of making the reader believe that this was just a, kind of a guy likes a guy kind of situation,
Totally.
and it really caught me off guard, and I was really surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, like suddenly, like there's this guy who calls her Iris, and it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Exactly. So I thought that was well done, and it leads to this the whole the girl at the castle sewing thing. I hope.
Yeah,
I think it will lead to that very well.
it makes sense. It seems very plausible at this point.
Yeah. The scene where Kahaku actually proposes to Fushi,
Yeah.
and Bon kind of walks in on that. And
Right.
so first off he just walks in. He's like, ooh, and then in the next chapter he's like has tea to drink, or he's like pouring himself tea, and just like intently listening. And then he has like cookies there as it's getting heated. His reaction just made it even more funny, just
Yeah.
progressively like getting
That
more
was
into
great.
it.
Yeah, watching him
So
observe
good.
that.
I can't wait to see that in the
Yeah.
anime.
And he had like a servant there too that was like
Yes.
holding the tray of cookies, and
He was always watching. He was like,
yeah, he was like looking too, like, what's going on? Uh,
and then finally, just the line from Bon to Fushi, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but why are you so special? Because you can share with the people around you.
exactly.
I think that's truly what makes someone special.
Yeah, and I thought that was also really nice to see that for this volume to call back to that, since that was one of the first things that Bond said to Fushi, at least like in like a serious conversation between the two. So that like in the previous book, so I thought that was definitely very nice and very true words too. And it's what Tonari said to him when he was a kid, or roughly anyway. So yeah, wise words.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I guess that brings us to the end of the discussion.
Yeah.
You said at the beginning that this might be one of your favorite To Your Eternity books ever. Like, I'm just curious to like kind of hear what specifically were like the things that made you really really love this book.
So to me, it's just well, Bon's character for one,
Oh yeah.
but also just seeing their journey and Fushi understanding more about what it is to be human. You know what it means to fall in love,
Mm.
and just kind of the reveals that were in here. You know, Todax being Iris. I guess that was the only big reveal, wasn't it? But still, like
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
I mean, we had also the whole thing about Fushi actually does have the ability to bring people back to life.
Oh yeah, that was a huge reveal. Oh,
That was massive.
yeah. So that was a huge reveal. So I think overall it was just a very exciting novel where a lot of where last novel it was so fast paced and well or at least like the time just kept going quickly
Right.
and so a lot happened there.
Hmm.
But here time doesn't progress as quickly and yet we still get a lot of good character moments and we're able to really grow with the characters here.
Yeah.
And because I like them so much, it just puts it higher up on the list for me. It doesn't beat 3 and 4. Don't get me wrong.
Those are hard to beat.
It could be my top 3.
Sweet. Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm really happy to hear that. And I mean, I absolutely loved it too. I think it might not be as high up my list if I would put together one for like all the volumes, but still, of course, very much loved it. Naturally.
Yeah.
But yeah, sweet, great discussion. I loved having this talk, and so I guess that's it for this week.
Get ready for pain.
Yes.
Get ready for pain and sadness.
Yeah, brace yourself. But hey, you know what to expect at this point.
I know.
You're 8 volumes into this series. You know what you've gotten yourself into.
You know what? I blame myself. That's all I'm gonna say.
Although,
I blame myself.
really, it's my fault for getting you into this.
Okay, so blame Petter.
Blame me.
Never speak to me ever again.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgive you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy.
Wave of emotions there.
Good. You gotta let it flow. Well, on that note, I think that is it for this week. If you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga, and it would be lovely if you'd like to support us by either rating our show on the podcast platforms or subscribing to our channel Umami Manga on YouTube. If you like this episode, please share it around with anyone you think might enjoy it too. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time when we'll talk about Volume 9. Bye bye!
Woo, see you later.
I nailed that final bit of the outro.
I know. I was thinking that too. It's like, oh, you nailed it.
Thank you.